What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 32 of Trail Tales. My name is Kyle O'Grady, and this is the podcast where I, a thru-hiker and peak bagger, and all-around hiking nerd, chat with other people just like myself, that is other thru-hikers and other peak baggers and other hiking nerds. If any of that sounds interesting to you, or if you fall into any of those categories and you have not done so already, I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the show and maybe went and checked out some older episodes. If you're a regular listener, welcome back, and I appreciate that very much. This week's episode was so much fun. Right now it's Tuesday evening, and I just recorded this episode last night, and I think it's one of my favorite ones, honestly. My guest, her name is Alton Eckel. She's done a bunch of stuff in the Whites. She's done a bunch of stuff in the Adirondacks, really just all over the Northeast. She's been some other places as well. And we touched on so many different topics in this one. We really went all over the place. We talk, like I just said, about the Whites and the Adirondacks quite a bit, but we also talk about hiking with her dog, Cole. And she says it in the episode, she pretty much exclusively hikes with Cole. That dog is just as badass as her. It's incredible. Like, seriously, this is going to blow your guys' mind. We also talk about the Cohos Trail in New Hampshire, which I'm finally learning how to pronounce. And we even talk a little bit about why she prefers winter hiking over summer hiking. And yeah, that's just a little bit of what we talk about. Like I said, we really go all over the place with this one. And I think it was a complete blast. So Alton, when you hear this, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it, and I don't think I said this earlier, say hi to Cole for me. We're going to get into the conversation in just a second here, but first I'm going to go over 3 things. I promise I'll keep it quick here, people. Don't hit that skip button. First of all, 5-star iTunes reviews. What's going on with that, people? I haven't gotten a written 5-star iTunes review in like over a month now. It's kind of bumming me out. So if you like this show, if you listen every week, or maybe you just found it and you like what you hear, I would really appreciate if you left me a 5-star iTunes review and write a little funny message or something when you do it, and I will read it at the beginning of next week's episode. It'll be super fun. Those reviews do really help the show, and it's a good way for me to get feedback, because it's really not, it's tough to get feedback with a podcast. There's no comments section, and there's no like dislike button, so I would really appreciate that. Another good way to give me feedback, because I know you're just dying to give me feedback, is to send me an email or a message on Facebook or a DM on Instagram. So let's go over real quick how you can do one or all of those 3 things. Email, trailtalespod@gmail.com. I love getting emails. I check that shit multiple times a day. Like, it just delights me when a new name pops into my inbox. God, that's kind of pathetic, but no, for real, like, that's another huge way that I can get feedback from you guys. If you have guest suggestions, if you have just really any feedback at all, I'd love to hear it on there. trailtalespod@gmail.com, or you can send me a message on Instagram. My Instagram is @trailtalespod. I would really appreciate if you go and sauce a follow over there. That'd be pretty sweet. Is that even a thing? Sauce a follow? I don't know. I think I just made something up, but we're gonna roll with it here. The last place, Facebook. Go like Trail Tales on Facebook. That would be sweet as well. The last thing I want to say real quick before we get into the chat is a quick plug for the Trail Tales Patreon. Now, like, I get it. Like, I don't like it when people ask me for money online, but like, seriously, if you don't know what Patreon is, or you're considering becoming a supporter of this show on Patreon, I would really appreciate it. If you go to patreon.com/trailtales, you can pledge $5 a month. You'll get a bonus episode and a blooper reel every single month. There was a couple bloopers in this week's episode, which only the Patreon supporters are going to get to hear, so please go check that out. I mean, the bonus content is great and all, but it also just really helps, like, continue this show, basically. There are some small costs associated with it, and there's a pretty big cost just for my time. So yeah, if you listen every week, please at least consider it, and that would be super sick. Once again, patreon.com/trail Tales. All right, I think that's all I'm gonna say in this week's introduction. Actually, no, that's not true at all. I have one more thing to say. You're gonna be hearing this on Wednesday, June 12th, 2019, most likely anyways. And that means tonight, the Stanley Cup Finals Game 7 is on. We talk about the Bruins a little bit later on in this episode, but I gotta say, people, go Bruins, go Bruins, go Bruins. Let's bring home the cup. I'm so excited, and hopefully it all works out well. Okay, for real this time, let's do it. Let's get into the episode. My conversation with Alton Eckel. Up, here we go. All right, episode number 32 of Trail Tales. I'm super excited today to be joined by Alton Eckel. She's done a bunch of stuff in the Whites. She has an awesome dog named Cole who's also done a bunch of stuff in the Whites and elsewhere, and I am so excited to talk about it. Alton, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm fantastic. I had to work a little bit late today, so I almost I was literally typing on my work computer, and then just 7 o'clock hit, switched over to this computer, and then I got to do a little bit more afterwards, so I'm just going to switch back over. But
oof, that's such a Monday.
I know. Yeah, for real. We're recording this on a Monday, everybody. If you didn't hear Alton just say that, so yeah. But it's all good. It's nice to take a little break from work and talk about some hiking, so I think that's what we're going to do today. So, all right, yeah, let's just jump right into it. Shit, I always feel kind of awkward starting these, but I don't know. So, pretty much the way I start all these, I guess, it shouldn't be awkward because I ask the same question pretty much every time at the beginning is, yeah, Alton, why don't you just talk a little bit about what you've done as far as hiking goes, and after that we'll kind of get into how you first got into hiking and your history behind that. But let's just start by getting your I know you don't like it, you don't like to answer this as we talked about earlier, but let's say your hiking resume quote, that
yes.
kind of question.
Yes, let's see just how narcissistic I can sound. Awesome. So I'm not like your typical absolutely amazing people that you've interviewed that do these elaborate, wonderful, fantastic thru hikes. For the most part, Cole and I just stay in the Northeast and kind of bomb around the trails for a day or through the night, or go off trail and bushwhack to weird slides. On occasion, we'll do a week out there, but that's pretty rare for us. We're just starting out with that type of stuff. So for the most part, we just 2 to 3 times a week try to get up to the Whites or out to the Adirondacks or up into Maine, and kind of just put in anywhere from we're talking a 5-mile day to a 50-mile day. And the dog never really knows, so it's kind of cool that he's willing to go.
Nice. That's so funny. What are some of the just the overview of the. See, this is a weird question to ask because it is kind of narcissistic, but I don't know. You get what I'm saying there, the resume, kind of the stuff you sent me earlier with the.
So, probably one of the most quintessential types of hikes in the Whites that everyone kind of bows down to is the hut to hut, which is, it's technically around 46 to 48 miles, and you hit all 8 of the major huts in the White Mountains in a single day. And it has around 17,000 feet of gain. And you also have to hike in and out of the first and last hut. So it's about 54 miles, really.
Jeez.
And so I did that prior to owning Cole. And then when I adopted him, it took me a couple of tries to really get up the balls to actually complete it and feel like I was not doing him a disservice. And so that's probably one of the most recognizable things that we've done. So hut to hut is about 54 miles, 17,000 elevation in a day.
Yeah, that's pretty, that's pretty insane, honestly. It looks like you've also done the, let's see, my regular listeners are going to laugh at me for this shit, but the New Hampshire Trail, the Cohos Trail? Cohos?
Yes.
Did I nail it? Cohos
you did.
Trail. Yes. Took me 3 episodes, but I finally got it. Yeah,
it's brutal.
Is the county pronounced this? Because the county is spelled a little bit different too. It's
I want to say that's Coos or something. I don't know.
Coos. It's New Hampshire. Why is it so? I don't know. I don't even know.
We should be dropping our R's, not our H's, but whatever.
I don't even know. But anyways, so you've done that as well, it sounds like. I've got some questions for that, yeah?
Yeah, so we did that two summers ago. And that was really our first technically through hike. It's about 175 miles, and it starts in Crawford Notch. And basically the goal of that trail was to be incredibly remote and take you to places that most hikers don't go in New Hampshire.
Right.
So it does go through the presidentials and then kind of like slides through Kilkenny Ridge, and you see people. And then you end up continuing north, going through Dixville Notch. Table Rock is part of it, which is absolutely beautiful. And then continue further north, where you basically feel like you're going back in time through like Lancaster, New Hampshire, and just all those towns that are kind of more snowmobiler type of towns. Yeah. And then you finish up in Canada. And so we did that as our like first through hike, and it took, I forget the exact amount of time, but it was 5 days and I believe 9 hours to get that done.
Nice. Yeah. See, that's like, I've talked to like a couple guests actually within the last few episodes really who have done that trail. And for some reason, I haven't gotten around to like actually like giving them a bunch of questions about it. Cause like I do this thing often where I'll interview someone who's hiked a trail that's like not as popular, like the Cohos Trail. And, I don't even understand how that's a name in New Hampshire, but, anyways, and like, I'll often ask them like just like the stereotypical like questions that hikers might research when they're first learning about a trail. Do you mind kind of going through some of that stuff real quick? I don't really have any notes on this, but I feel like after mispronouncing the name for like 3 episodes, like I gotta actually teach people or explain to people what this trail is a little bit. So yeah, is that cool?
Yeah, I'll do my best to answer it. It was kind of just a thing that like I walked on, but I don't really know like a ton of history on it, but I do know it's taken off.
Right. So I guess like the first question I have about it is like, so I know, I don't know that much about it. I do know that the first like X amount of miles just kind of follows some of the trails in the White Mountain system. Is that correct?
Yes, it starts in Crawford Notch on Davis Path and kind of winds through pretty remote trails, just skirting around Eisenhower.
Okay.
So you're still around people, but you're on very remote, not well-traveled trails, which I believe is kind of the goal of that one.
Right.
So you basically don't see humans that day very often, which is really nice.
Yeah. See, that's one of the things that kind of throws me off about this trail is it's like it's its own like entity, like it's got its own like, like organization that maintains it and all this stuff. It's got its own like little like patch I'm looking at on Google Images right now and all this stuff. But then like the first part of it, I guess, or the last part of it, if you go southbound, like just kind of borrows the White Mountain Trail system. I guess my question here is like, how far into it do you actually like just be on like the Cohos Trail versus like the White Mountain trails?
That pretty much takes over. Once you're through the Kilkenny Ridge, you're pretty much following the Cohos Trail at that point.
Okay. And I guess, I mean, obviously, if you're not hiking through the Whites anymore, there's got to be like some change of scenery. Can you just like talk a little bit about like how the trail might have changed after you got through there?
It becomes much more gentle. So you pretty much are on more rollers for hills versus really rugged terrain once you get, I would say probably like 10 to 20 miles north of Cabot. It turns into much faster stuff that you can move through. But again, it's just remote. Like you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. You're crossing through a lot of like snowmobile trails that are really overgrown. There are a couple of road walks. It has a very snowmobile vibe to it.
That is pretty popular up in northern New Hampshire. I remember when I was I've driven through like Gorham, New Hampshire during the winter a couple times. And I mean, I know that's still a little bit south. That's, more in the Whites area still. But yeah, there's like literally snowmobiles just like going down like the sidewalk and shit. Like
Definitely.
That's huge up there.
Yeah, there were like a lot of 4-wheelers were going by and stuff. So it's great. You get a lot of dirt kicked up on you. It's awesome. But lots of like wildflowers, just really, really pretty. And it changes from that rugged white mountain feel after the first, I really don't know the mileage, but probably 10 to 20 north of Cabot. It
Gotcha.
really just starts to shift, and you're on a lot of, they almost feel like roads compared to your typical white mountain type of hiking.
You talk about the snowmobile trails and, the ATV paths and that stuff. Honestly, I hiked a trail a couple weeks ago down in South Carolina called the Foothills Trail, and a good at least 25% of that trail was on legitimate logging roads, these wide paths. I mean, you know what a freaking logging road is, obviously you're a hiker. And so I guess I'm just kind of thinking back to that, and I'm wondering, when you talk about these snowmobile trails and these ATV trails, is the Cohos Trail actually is it actually following those trails, or is it just kind of intersecting them and skirting over them?
So it's a combination. You could be on those for 2 or 3 miles and then go kind of back into single track into the woods and then kind of pop out and cross them again. But there's a decent amount of time that you're pretty much on those types of either logging roads, or it's a pretty wide path. The other thing I did forget to mention is, because it's so remote up there, tons of moose. It's pretty rad.
Oh, you know what? I bet I've seen some pictures on because I'm in the Cohos Trail Facebook group, and people post pictures of that shit all the time for sure.
Yes, that's probably the best part of it. There's just a ton of bogs, ton of overgrown stuff, and then it's a lot of it is pretty wide though compared to what we're used to in the whites, at least. Okay,
cool. Another question that I've honestly been wondering about this trail, and maybe I just need to look at a freaking map and it might answer my question, but how's the camping? So I know, just again from being in that Facebook group, I know they have shelters, a couple shelters. I don't know, are there other established campsites, or is it mostly just stealth camping?
It depends on where you end up at night. We tried pretty hard to get to lean-tos each night, and there's actually, I want to say it's I can't remember exactly what its award is, but if you look it up, there's an award for, it's either the most beautiful lean-to in the Northeast, or it might be in America. They have some ridiculous thing about one of these lean-tos, and we stayed in that one, and it was beautiful and new and just perfect, and no mice had destroyed it, the usual.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of lean-tos because you have so many snowmobilers that need spots to crash out.
Really? The snowmobile people use the,
or at least maybe the four-wheelers. I don't know, because they were all.
Maybe just because it's easy for the trail maintainers to get in there. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure, but they basically just have lean-tos pretty frequently enough along the trail that if you're making decent mileage, you can get to a lean-to. Mm-hmm. Which is kind of nice, especially if there's any weather coming in. We camped out one night and just kind of stealth camped. There's definitely plenty of camping, especially along Cherry Mountain Road or whatever the heck it is there off of 302. But it's summer and everyone's camping.
Yeah,
so for the most part, especially if it's a weekend, you just end up kind of stealth.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's, like I said a minute ago, that's definitely on my list. I mean, I live so close to it too.
Nice.
I feel I definitely got to get over there at some point. So we'll see. And honestly, it looks super, super remote, like you were saying too. That's one of the things that definitely stood out to me in my very limited, clearly research. So
it is, and there are tons of waterfalls and lakes you go by. It is a really pretty trail.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm going to try to have somebody else on that can maybe nerd out about that a little bit more, because I am curious to know. However, there's so much stuff here that I want to get to with you, Alton. So I think we're going to talk about Cole a little bit. So you've mentioned Cole a couple times a little bit already, and it sounds like you guys pretty much go hand in hand when it comes to the trail. Yeah, you're pretty much always hiking with him?
I am. It's very, very rare that he doesn't come with me. I think I've only done 2 hikes without him since I took over ownership.
Okay, interesting. So why don't you just talk a little bit about who he is, what kind of dog is he, and some of his history on the trail.
So Cole is a 6-year-old Shiba Inu. It sounds like I'm swearing whenever I say that. And his breed typically gets to be about 20 to 25 pounds, but he's 40 and he's pretty solid. So he's like very big for the breed, which is, it actually works in my favor to have him that size. And the way I ended up having him is that one of my friends couldn't keep him. So I took him for a weekend, brought him up Huntington Ravine at 7 months old. So Mount Washington.
Was that his first
killed
hike?
It. That's his first hike.
Damn.
Yep. Dude just like had no issues at all. Killed it. Showed zero like problems with the rocks and the ruggedness. So at that point I kept him. And around like 1.5, I took him for his first Pemi loop, and he took, so Pemi loop, for anyone that doesn't know, is just like 32-ish miles around the Pemi-Jawassa Wilderness. Pretty like iconic hike.
Yeah.
And he just killed that too. I think we did it in like 9 hours and change. And he just acted like it was nothing. Like, fine, jumped in the back of my car, didn't need any help. Very low maintenance dog. He's done great when we go off trail. Sometimes some of the things that we'll do are like slides that are off trail in the whites, especially pretty frequently they would be ice climbing routes that in summer can be pretty technical, a little crumbly, a little difficult to get up.
Okay.
And he just gets up them, like right up a climbing route. I think if I was to guess, probably the most technical stuff he's gone up, I would say for any climbers out there, about a 5'7" is what he can get up without assistance.
I don't know what that means, but it sounds pretty legit. So
he's basically, I joke that, I don't know if anyone watches South Park, but instead of man, bear, pig, he's basically just robot, wolf, goat. So that's his deal. He's anything but a dog.
Oh, that's so great.
But yeah, and he's traveled all over the country with me for hiking. He's been to Colorado and Utah. He's gone to Montana. Yeah, he's basically down for anything. He's done the Northeast 115. So
damn, that's so incredible. One of the questions I was going to ask you was like, I guess I'll rewind for a second here. A couple episodes ago, I had a guest on named Effie Drew, and she's also hiked a shit ton with her dog.
Nice.
She said, I hope I don't mess this number up because it was just a couple episodes ago, but I think it was something like 7,000 miles, like something ridiculous with her dog, which is awesome. And I was kind of just picking her brain a little bit about, advice for like hiking with dogs. Cause honestly, actually, that's not true. I kind of have a dog now. My roommates and I we were fostering a dog for the moment, but for most of my life, I'm 23, I've really never had a dog, never had one growing up, and really don't have any experience hiking with a dog. And I was just kind of asking her about, how to like get your dog up to speed, with not even like a thru hike or anything crazy like that, just with like backpacking or even day hiking. And one of her pieces of advice was like to kind of ease him into it, right? But then you said that you just threw Cole right up the Huntington Ravine Trail. Like that's pretty gnarly. I don't know. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like I think that's hilarious.
So I should probably just throw disclaimers out there at all times that like no one should do what I did. Typically what I tell other people is, yes, ease them into it. Like your other guest gave the most perfect advice. Cole he's really weird where I had already known him prior to adopting him. So I'd been running with him a little bit and kind of could read him really well. And so I had a pretty good feeling he would take to the type of mileage and terrain pretty easily.
Right. That definitely makes a little more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say more than anything, it really it doesn't even necessarily depend on the breed or the training or the amount of time. There really isn't, even like with a hiker, there isn't this perfect little recipe of, well, do this hike and this hike and this hike and you'll be ready for something big. I think a big part of it really is just the animal as an individual and what they're capable of and how they're raised and just kind of what their exposure is from a young age. Mm-hmm. So I do say this constantly. I got really lucky with him. I don't think many dogs could do what he does, which sounds incredibly like arrogant and like every dog owner out there. But he'll stay awake for 24 hours doing these crazy hikes.
Damn.
And most dogs would like lay down and be like, nah, dude, I'm going to sleep.
Yeah.
So definitely got lucky. And then the next day he'll wake up and be like, we doing it again? What's up?
That's so incredible. You might have said this a second ago, so I apologize. How old is he?
He's 6.
6, okay. So, again, I don't know a ton about dogs, but that's probably what, like, oh man, I might make a fool of myself here. Is that like middle age-ish for a dog?
It is. It's funny. So the reason we're finishing up the grid is because around 6, some dogs can start to get, like, they can start to need to taper down on their miles.
Mm-hmm.
Some dogs keep going pretty like decent mileage days until they're 10 or 11. But just kind of as a precaution, I want to try and like fit in as much as we can while he's kind of nearing the end of his prime.
Yeah.
Which is around, he'll turn 7 in October. And that's like around the time that I'm going to be paying pretty good attention to how his body's responding and his disposition when he's out there for long days.
Right. Okay, interesting. While we're still kind of on the topic of, I feel like Cole's going to be a reoccurring topic for this episode,
yes.
which is great. But I guess, again, just coming from the place of a person who doesn't know anything about hiking with dogs, really, like, what kind of precautions do you take when you're hiking with him to make sure he's like stays safe and stays healthy?
So biggest thing that I do is he doesn't like to drink or eat from a bowl. So whenever we come near water, I make sure that I stop so he can drink, because if I keep going, he just will keep going. So that's probably the biggest thing, especially with it getting so warm this time of year. Definitely take time to let him cool off in any like pond that he needs to. And then the other big thing that I watch for with him is his disposition. It's only happened a couple of times, but if his actual demeanor and personality starts to change, that's when I know something's up.
Mm-hmm.
He's not very demonstrative. He doesn't show a lot of emotion in his face. Like a lot of dogs, like they smile and they look excited, and he's pretty stoic.
I was going to say, like, I've seen the pictures and it does look like he's just kind of like cool, calm, and collected,
Yeah, he's a robot. Like there's typically no response. So if we're seeing other dogs and he seems a little weirded out and like freaked out, then I know he's probably really tired. But for the most part, even like this past Saturday, we had a really big day and he was totally cool with every dog we saw, like sniffed them, kept going, was himself. He's very light on his feet. He's not very clumsy. So if that ever changed, I would know something was up.
Mm-hmm.
And I do, like on days that we're in, like he's done a double prezi. So it's an out and back of the presidentials. And the Northerns are so gnarly on their pads. So I definitely, days that we're up there, I'll check his pads. But knock on wood, he's only had one experience where he tore a pad. So got really lucky there too.
What do you do like when that happens?
So when he did rip his pad, it was kind of like towards the end of the day. So it was just head out. I did have tape. So I did tape it up. Personally, I don't even know if that helped or didn't help. It made me feel better.
Right, gotta do something.
Yeah, I figure, it's a foreign object to him and he's never worn booties or anything. But it was near the end of the day and it just took about 3 days and it healed up. So was, again, really, really lucky.
Yeah,
I'm still convinced he's a robot. And I'm just a mere mortal that's trying to like hang on.
Oh man, that's so incredible. I know you guys have done quite a bit of winter hiking as well. So I don't know, because like I feel like obviously for a person, like there's a lot of differences, a lot of just in the things you have to bring and the way your body reacts to winter hiking. So yeah, like how does that kind of change the equation for Cole specifically?
Okay, so it changes it for me drastically and for him barely. It's
really
insane.
Really?
Again, he never wears booties. His paws are always fine. Even we went out on a day that was like -40 wind chill, I want to say. It may have actually even been lower than that. We started in the car. My car read -12 in the parking lot.
Damn.
And as long as we keep moving, he is absolutely fine. Like no booties. I do put jackets on him. I will fully admit he has a closet. He has a straight up closet with hangers. So the jackets are more for show, but on days like that, I do think that they help. But
Doesn't hurt,
yeah, exactly. And in the winter, like he eats pretty much the same types of food. And then for water, he barely ever will drink from a bowl again, which drives me freaking insane because I'm like, you're going to die. But he loves to eat snow and it works for him because he's even,
yeah.
It really does. And I mean, he did a 50-mile single day in the Adirondacks in winter. And
Jesus.
Dude was fine. Like he had pep in his step at the end. So I don't know how he does it. Really cold days, he doesn't show any concern. He doesn't try to go back to the car. There's no problem. So I will say, you know how they send the canaries in to like determine if a coal mine has an issue? Am I accurate in that?
I have no idea. Coal mining is not my expertise,
it's
unfortunately.
not mine either. I'm pretty sure they send some type of bird in to know if there's to know if there's carbon something.
Oh,
I don't know.
okay.
To know if people can't breathe,
Sure,
basically. Sure. So my joke is that we know if Cole lets out this little chirp 3 times, it's too cold to hike. Oh. It's only happened once. But he let out this like really weird little screech, and I was like, "All right, it's too cold."
Damn.
Yep.
Well, what ended up happening then?
We just turned back. We didn't go to the summit, and that was 2 winters ago when we had what I refer to as the tundra. We had like 2 weeks of just negative temps. So I didn't blame him. I didn't really like it either.
I was going to say, you probably weren't too upset about that either, huh?
No.
That's too funny. I guess, what other just like general advice would you have for somebody who maybe wants to, this is another question I asked Effie, just general advice for somebody who might want to get their dog into, let's not even say like through hiking or like 50-mile days during the winter in the Adirondacks. Let's just say like a day hike or maybe like an overnight, like a, like very basic like hike, I guess. What would be some general advice you'd give to somebody who wants to do that with their dog?
I'd probably tell them the same thing that I did in the beginning, which is bring everything in the start that a dog could possibly need. Like bring Musher's Secret for if their pads have an issue. Bring some booties, even try them on prior because it's really weird for a dog the first time. Like bring a little like blanket for them to sit on. Bring a bowl for water, bring food, bring a variety of treats. That way you have everything and you're prepared for if there's an issue. And then you can kind of figure out what the dog independently likes because every dog's so different, just like how we have different like treats that we really like to bring on trail.
Sure.
The only other thing I do throw out there, and I actually have done this with Cole, is practicing carrying your dog, which would be almost think of like a really rich older woman with a mink wrapped around her neck. That's how you typically would carry, unless you have a really huge dog, that's how you'd carry them out. So I usually just throw out there practicing that once or twice, just to know that your dog is comfortable being on your back like that. And these are all worst case scenario situations,
of course.
But I think it can be good to practice.
Yeah, for sure. Can Cole do like ladders? Because I just thought of a story like, oh man, this was like years. This is probably like 4 or 5 years ago now. But one time I was just hiking here in Vermont. I was on Mount Mansfield, and anybody who's hiked the Long Trail here might remember the section going like north up Mount Mansfield. There's like a number of ladders, and like one time I was going up, like there's a section of like 2 ladders pretty much with like a little like section of rock in between. It's like pretty rugged, especially for like non-Adirondack or white standards. And there was these people coming down with a dog, and like the dog like was refusing to go down the ladder. Like it was just like not having it. And eventually the person just like volunteered me to like catch the dog as she just like pushed it down the ladder pretty much. I don't know. How does not like she didn't just like fucking like kick the goddamn thing off the ladder, but she pretty much like forced it to go down, and then I kind of like grabbed it halfway down and helped it. I don't know. Anyways, what I'm getting at here is, can Cole just like send it up and down the ladders like that, or do you have to kind of help him when it comes to those?
the majority of ladders and even like the rungs that you have in like Maine, he can get up and down. The only there is one that will be his nemesis his entire life. He can get up the ladder on High Cannon, but he cannot get down it. And there's no way to skirt around it. Like there's no little, it's just a straight up cliff that comes down and the ladder's your only option. So I just carry him down it. And it's like my one time that he's affectionate and adorable. And he just wraps his arms around me like a little toddler and I just carry him down it.
Oh, that's so funny. What trail is that? I
it's
brought
on
my
High
map
Cannon
here.
on Cannon Mountain. So it's coming off of like, if you're heading to Lonesome Lake, if you go pretty directly up to Cannon.
High Cannon. Is that like the name of the trail?
It is, yep.
High Cannon. Oh shit, I don't remember. It was a number of years ago that I did Cannon, so I can't quite remember. Damn. Well, that's pretty incredible. That's funny that it's just the one ladder that trips him up too, eh?
I really do call it his nemesis. It is the only thing. Like, poor guy, he tried it once and I had a heart attack and he just like went tumbling and I had to like run down to grab him. He was absolutely fine, but I was like, yeah, we're never doing that again.
That's so funny. That's so funny. Let's talk about winter hiking a little more because we kind of touched on that already here. So from your message earlier today, it kind of sounded, maybe I didn't read this right, but you said that you started like 9 years ago hiking during the winter and you kind of fell in love with it. Is that correct?
I did. So what I should probably say is I used to hate cold weather. I'm that person who's like constantly too cold. I love it when it's 100 degrees and humid and I'm happy. And so some of my friends were into hiking and they were going in January and they were like, just come. And I pretty much laughed nonstop and then decided, well, why not? And we did, the best part of the story is that we did Whiteface in New Hampshire. Just Whiteface. No Passaconaway. Nope. Just one little mountain. Left that outlier. But I loved it. It turned out you can be out there in negative temps and still be so warm. It's just this, you feel like you're battling the elements. All of your primal pieces come out. Like winter is now my absolute favorite season.
Really?
So I went once and was completely hooked. And basically that was when hiking became my primary favorite thing to do outdoors.
Interesting. See, I just... That's so incredible because I've had a couple guests on recently that do the winter hiking thing, and my regular listeners will know that I really don't, honestly. Like I've done a couple, like I've done mostly just the 4,000 footers around here, like Camel's Hump and Mount Mansfield. I've done those in the winter. I did Phelps in the winter, and then I did Cabot. Yeah, it was Cabot, and those are pretty much the only like significant mountains that I've done during the winter. And honestly, like maybe I need to go out and do some more because I really haven't done any winter peaks in a couple of years. But I don't know, like I'm just I was never really a fan of it. So I just find that so incredible that like your first hike was during the winter and like that's what hooked you, right? Not the beautiful July day when it's 70 degrees and the sun's out and like that's I don't know, what is it about the winter then that yeah, like how do you like that more than summer? Like I don't even know. I don't get it.
Well, part of it is I like hiking to avoid humans, like most of us do. So in winter, you have a lot less people. In summer, on the weekends, the Franconia Loop is really frightening for someone like me. Oh, yeah. So in winter, there's a lot less people, especially 9 years ago. It was a very small community that was out in the Whites in winter. You basically knew, when you passed someone, you knew who they were. It was really interesting. And it has taken off, which is actually awesome. It's nice to see so many people getting outside in the winters between skiing or hiking or just taking advantage of how great it is up here. Mm-hmm. And so I like the fact that there's less people. I also like everything is just cleaner looking. So all the leaves that obstruct a lot of views that you don't even know exist in winter, you're higher up because you're like 5-8 feet. I don't know, this past winter we were probably 12 feet up on the trail. And you get to just see things that you would never see in summer when it's all obstructed with,
Yeah,
leaves.
That's true.
And just even the air, because there isn't humidity, there isn't that same haze. So you get a lot, just the views seem that much crisper to me. And there's pretty much, again, there's just, for me, there's a primal aspect to it where when you're out there, you feel like I'm not supposed to be here, but I am. And that's pretty rad.
Yeah, shit. Okay, I never really thought about it like that. I mean, I kind of knew like the view opening up thing because, like I said, I've done a little bit, but like shit, I don't know. Maybe I need to give it another try. What would
I think you should.
What would you suggest? Say in the whites, for like a good peak to do during the winter for someone who is maybe an experienced hiker like me, but not really in the winter and doesn't even own a pair of microspikes yet.
All right. So I'd probably just get a pair of microspikes and then...
Yeah, that's probably step one, eh?
Yeah, totally. But then you could go and do, I would say something like, Adams in winter is amazing.
Oh, come on. You're going to tell me to do the second highest peak in New Hampshire, like my first time?
Oh my God, but then you get to look at all the beautiful presidentials and be so happy, and they're covered in white. And again, you just feel like you're not supposed to be there. It's awesome.
That's true. I guess, okay, so let's say I want to go do Mount Adams then during the winter. Let's say it's February 2nd or something like that. Where, besides just Googling the weather, where do you go to get, like, I'm sure there's like some White Mountain, like, freaking, like, fanatics here that are like screaming at their phones, but where do I, like, such a basic question, but where do I go to like get like accurate weather updates and maybe like trip reports from people that have been up there recently and all that stuff?
So, I mean, the pretty classic places to look would be Mount Washington Observatory, the higher summit forecast. That one's updated pretty regularly, especially like the day prior, about 24 hours prior. It tends to be pretty accurate. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I'll check just the higher summit forecast. You just Google like Mount Adams, New Hampshire higher summit forecast. That one's not quite as accurate, but it'll give you an idea of what like wind speeds and like the wind chill factor is for the elevation you're looking at and location. And then for trail conditions, that part is probably the biggest in winter because I really hate to bring snowshoes for zero reason. And anyone from the Adirondacks, I'm so sorry. So New England trail conditions is great. And I appreciate everyone that puts up trip reports because I am not one of them because I'm really lazy. I don't have Facebook, but I know in the forums, people are pretty good at answering those questions, posting about their hikes. That's kind of taken over a lot of the things. Like View from the Top used to be popular. And I think New England trail conditions and Facebook kind of took over for that.
Okay, interesting, yeah.
Or you can do what I do and just ask your friends that are hiking every other day.
Yeah, I guess that's a pretty good resource you got to tap into as well. Interesting. How about just some more general White Mountain talk? So I've covered the Whites like pretty extensively in the last like month or two of episodes because obviously Philip's episode that was almost 10 episodes ago now, but obviously that was all about the Whites. And my last guest, Sean Crawford, YouTuber Syntax77, he stung quite a bit in the Whites as well, so we talked about it there. But I love the Whites. Just what's your favorite? This might be tough. What's your favorite like just peak or area in general of the Whites? If you need to think about it or talk them over for a second, like I totally get that too. I know you've done quite a few miles there.
Well, thankfully, this is a question people ask a lot. So my answer typically, if I had, like, if you put a gun to my head, which would be so mean and made me answer it, I would say Mount Liberty. And the reason is I live actually right on the Mass border, so I just shoot up 93. So for me to get to Liberty, right, like in the southern part of Franconia Notch and be able to hike that mountain, it's only about an hour 45 for me. So that's probably one of the closest beautiful peaks that I have accessibly.
You must be driving like you're from Massachusetts too then, because isn't that further than?
Yeah, I'm right on the border, but I have New Hampshire plates. Very important to me.
Yes.
So Liberty is it's a really beautiful peak that is pretty easily recognizable with the weird rock formations. And then I've witnessed more undercast sunrises and sunsets from there than any other peak. So that one just has my heart. It has a lot more memories, nostalgia for me. And then otherwise, I mean, Northern Presidentials are out of this world and like absolutely nothing else in the Northeast. So I think those are pretty stamped in my brain.
Awesome. You think I might have to cut that comment about the Massachusetts driving out? What do you think? Like, I actually have like quite a few listeners from Massachusetts too. So sorry, everybody.
It's really funny you say it because it is like such a joke where I'm like, yeah, I'm like 4 miles from the border, but I'm so New Hampshire.
That's so funny. Yeah. Sorry, people from Massachusetts. I like Massachusetts. I've been there quite a bit. I like the Bruins too. Go Bruins.
Yes.
Shit. Game 7,
Yes.
2 days from now. My listeners know I'm a big Bruins fan, so awesome. Yes, I'm sorry, Massachusetts people.
Actually, so if the Bruins win, on Thursday I have a hike planned and my friend will be wearing his jersey and I will be in my like Bruins cheerleader outfit for a hike. Like we are so ready.
Yes. Oh my God. I hope they win.
Yes.
Like like I said, my listeners know I'm a big Bruins fan. I've mentioned it a couple times, but like shit. Like I've watched like almost, I got back from my thru hike on October 1st and 2018 and the Bruins first game was on October 3rd. So like, this has consumed my post like thru hike life. Like I've seen like pretty much, I think I've missed like 2 games, and like the fact that they're maybe about to hopefully win the Stanley Cup is pretty incredible. So yeah, go Bruins.
It'd be so amazing. Yes.
It would be. I'll spare my listeners any more hockey talk for now. They're definitely going to hear it if the Bruins win, and if they lose, they're probably not going to ever hear about it again, at least till next fall. So anyways, okay. So this question about the Whites, it might be the same. It might be the same answer, but it is a little bit of a different question. There's a slight distinction here. So you talked about your favorite like peak, your favorite area in the Whites. How about what you would consider the most underrated part of the Whites?
So that for me would be the Wildcat Carter Mariah range.
Really? Even though the AT goes over there and I feel like all the 4,000 footers are there and all that stuff?
So are we talking, okay, maybe I need a clarification. This might be my bad. I was thinking underrated in terms of actually is a lot more challenging than people give it credit for. Did you mean underrated in the sense of like is absolutely beautiful but not a lot of people get to?
You know, I didn't really mean anything. So yeah, okay, that makes a lot. I'm glad you said that. So let's go with both. Why don't we do both? Shit.
All right. Cool.
So I'll let you elaborate a little bit more on the difficulty thing. It's actually funny that you said the Wildcat, that area there, because I kind of asked a similar question to my last guest, Sean Crawford, and I can't remember exactly. I think I said maybe what the most difficult one was, and he said like the same thing pretty much, and I would agree. I haven't hiked there as extensively as you have, but I mean I did the AT through there obviously on my thru hike, and then I've done just one round of all the 4,000 footers, and I would definitely agree like that shit is pretty gnarly.
Yes. Yeah, it just, I mean, I don't even know how you guys doing the AT handle it. Like, I would be such a wreck. Did you slack pack it? Did you carry it?
No.
Dude, amazing.
Let's see, I stayed in Gorham, and then I went from Pinkham Notch to Imp, and then I went back into Gorham the next day. But
wow.
One of my buddies did that, just like straight up through though with his pack and everything, like just did the whole range at once. Which I don't know why he brought his pack then if he was going back to the same town, but I don't know. Sorry, Indy.
Love it. Yeah, it's just it's one of those that like it's like 18 and change if you do like all those peaks in there, like following the AT, and it's just one of those really weird ones that if you look at the stats, you're like, oh, sweet, that'll be like a cool day, and then you get out there and it just becomes a time warp. It's like they're very dramatic in a sneaky way.
Yeah, they are. And I said this, I think I said this last episode too, but that section, if you're going, north on the AT from Pinkham Notch, Notch, is like from Pinkham Notch up to the top of whatever the first Wildcat is. I can't remember the freaking.
I call them Wildcat Z.
There's so many goddamn letters. I don't even remember, but whatever the first one there is going north, that is the steepest section of the entire AT, which definitely is a thing because that shit's pretty crazy. I was glad I had done it before, like, you know, so I went up on my thru hike. I kind of knew what to expect, but it was also better going up it for sure than it was going down it like I did the first time. So
yeah, I can imagine. The nice part, at least, is you get those awesome views really quick. So, like, all of your effort is rewarded. But yeah, it's a slap in the face.
I think if I was peak bagging it again, I'd probably just, I don't know. I don't think there's any rules against this. Like, can you just go up the ski trails?
Totally, yes.
Okay, yeah, I'd probably do that.
Yeah.
That's only because I've done it twice, though. If you haven't done it, people, you got to do it at least once for sure.
Yes, exactly.
Go through the misery that we've gone through.
It's your initiation. That's the deal.
For sure. Okay, how about underrated as far as, like, maybe just like I don't even want to say beautiful because it doesn't have to just be like a scenic like thing. Like just most underrated as far as, I don't know, like the good vibe or something like that. You get what I'm going for there?
I do, and that's probably one of like my happiest places that is underrated, not really known well. It is, strangely enough, it's right off the AT, but Whitewall, which is that really visible line from Z Cliff when you look out.
Oh man, I'm trying to think. I don't even know I've never even heard of that, honestly. hence the underrated. This is sweet.
It definitely is. It's a really cool, active live slide. And so you just go up you basically rock surf, going up these boulders that are moving on a pretty straight chute and then climb up to some ledges and end up getting one of the most unique views of Carrigan Notch, which is a really dramatic notch to look at. If you look at Carrigan from that view, you're like, oh yeah, Carrigan's kind of a beast. Mm-hmm. And it's just, they're gorgeous, gorgeous ledges that you can see sunset, sunrise from. I've actually cowboyed up there under a meteor shower. And like,
fuck yeah.
that was probably one of the best nights of my life. I'll never top it. But it's one of those really underrated sections. And also when you approach it, so you come in from almost as though you were going to the Zealand Hut and just continue straight on the AT, like going to Thorough Falls. And that section, even just before you start bushwhacking to go up the slide, it reminds me very much about West. It's one of the few places out here where you just, all of a sudden you come out of the woods and it's just open and actually pretty easy footing that's just mostly dirt and flat and chill with these dramatic views. And it just has a very unique feel to it. So even just that section, like if someone doesn't even want to do the white wall craziness that it is, just to even go through that section of trail is amazing, which I'm pretty sure, I swear it's the AT.
Yeah, no, it is. Okay, so I kind of pulled up the map there while you were talking, and I absolutely 100% remember this section now that you say it. So obviously, like you said, the AT just kind of like cuts through it. It doesn't actually go up the wall or whatever. Or goes at the bottom of it or whatever it is. But I 100% remember that shit because I had hiked like most of the trails around there before when I was doing my 4,000 footers. Like I'd obviously done like Tom Field, Wiley, and I'd cut over to Hale, and I'd been to like the Zealand Falls hut before in Zealand Mountain itself. But I'd never done that little skirt from the hut to, I guess it's Crawford Notch on the AT. And I remember the shit out of that because I was like dead tired when I got to Zealand Falls Hut, and we still had probably 8 or 9, 10, whatever it is, miles to go to the notch. I don't remember the exact number, and I was kind of dreading it. I was kind of not in like a super great mood, and then once I started hiking and left the hut, that shit was just so awesome that like I couldn't help but like, even though I was like kind of cranky, like I still remember it being like one of my favorite parts of like the entire section in the Whites, honestly. And maybe that's because I've kind of done most of the AT through there already, and that was one section I hadn't, but I absolutely remember that. That's pretty funny that you say that. Yeah, for sure. That section is awesome. I definitely want to make it back there. I kind of want to ask you more about these like slides. So like the slides are a huge thing in the Adirondacks too, obviously. Obviously they exist in the Whites. I feel like maybe not quite as much, or at least they don't get as much people don't talk about them as much in the Whites, maybe because they're, like I said, they are pretty huge in the Adirondacks. But I don't know, like shit. Like, how do you just like bushwhack them pretty much? Just like go off them or go off the trail and like just hike up the slides? Like, damn.
You do it. Everything you're saying is so accurate. Where like the Adirondacks have these dramatic, amazing slides, especially since Irene. Like, just awesome stuff out there, and we don't have quite as much. Ours is a little more hidden. But yeah, basically what I do for the most part is there are times that I would just stand on a summit or on an outlook and say, what is that? And then I'd go research it and figure out how to get to the base of it and climb up it. Some of them do have to do with like the 100 highest list, I believe, which is not one I'm actively working on, but I think like I've done like the Lowell slide, which I know Lowell's on that list, or I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure you can approach it without doing the really gnarly left chute. So Lowell is basically the mountain you look at when you're standing on Signal Ridge heading towards Carrigan. And there are 3 very dramatic slides on it. And Cole and I did the left chute, which is crumbly and terrible, and I don't recommend anyone descends it.
Oh no.
But yeah, it was just kind of fun to start to figure out different ways to get to either the same peaks or unique peaks and just have a new view of different things. So, like I said, I mean, I love the Franconia Loop. I think it is beautiful. I'm glad that like National Geographic recognized it. That's great, but it is crawling with humans and they scare me. So I started trying to find new ways to get up to Franconia Ridge without needing to be on trail. So things like Dry Brook Ravine or Lincoln's Throat, which is a really common ice climbing route, became really interesting to me. So basically veering off of Falling Waters or Old Bridle Path and getting away from people for a while, being able to go up some pretty slabby, technical, interesting stuff has been really fun. And it gives you, you're on a slide, so the entire time you have killer views.
For sure. Yeah, I never even thought about that. Like I said, like I didn't even really realize that people actually hike up these slides in the Whites. And even in the Adirondacks, like I don't really know anybody who's done too much of that stuff. Maybe some people that have like backcountry skied it during the winter, the slides there. But shit, that's pretty incredible. I gotta try that sometime. That actually sounds pretty fun.
Yes.
Do you just like do you have like a GPS that you use, or you just use a map and compass? Like how do you kind of? I guess if you're on a slide, like it's pretty easy to tell like where to go. But I don't know, shit. Like how do you deal with the navigation? Because that's always something that kind of makes me hesitant because I've never really bushwhacked before.
For me, it's a combination of different things. It can be either researching, like, thankfully there are a few people that I know that have done these, so I can pick their brain prior just to know what to look for and what to pay attention to. Also, there is information out there. Basically, the whole people will probably get a little annoyed that I'm even mentioning these things because they're supposed to be these kept secrets. And my whole thing is, look, if you're willing to do the research and go through the effort to get to these places, I have no problem telling you they exist. Yeah. I'm not telling you how to get there. I'm just telling you they exist. So basically, I do my research either online. Some of these are abandoned trails. Like Adams has an abandoned slide that still has old blazes on it, actually.
Oh, really?
It's really cool. It's very overgrown, but it's awesome. You get to you can look through old guidebooks to find information. When I first started, I would do more map and compass style. And now, because I've been in the White so much, I feel very comfortable going off trail and connecting things.
Yeah.
A lot of these I did do with friends that had GPS as well. So I do want to preface it with that. The majority of them are with friends. We would work together, sync up, and figure out what feels right, check the GPS. But some of them I would do on my own. And thankfully, I mean, I'll give Cole credit. That dude can find a trail that intersects anytime he needs to.
That's awesome.
We actually, this past winter, Phil was like, the wolf has built-in GPS was the joke. So that's very calming and helpful.
Yeah, that's something I should probably mention too is you're pretty good friends with Philip Karsha, who was my guest on episode 24. Maybe I did say this earlier. I can't quite remember, but yeah. And you were featured in his story at the end of our episode there too. I'm sure a lot of people have heard that one. That's one of my pretty much is my most popular episode so far. So
that's awesome.
That's pretty sweet. There's just one more like kind of topic I want to ask about before we get to your story time segment. So this Northeast Ultra 8 thing, I had never heard of this in my entire life until today when you were messaging me about it. What is this, and how did you crush this?
So, all right, I might make you edit this. Bear with me. Just that's going to be for you, a heads up. So the Ultra 8 list is, there was I got to think. There were 3 guys from the New York area that created a list of what they considered the 8 hardest hikes in the Northeast. And obviously there's like a Grafton Notch Loop, a hut to hut. There's so much more that you can add to that. But they basically tried to choose a variety of hikes in distance and difficulty throughout the Northeast. So there's like the Taconic Crest Trail, which touches Vermont, New York, and Mass. And it's like 38, 39-ish miles, but you go through 3 states. That's pretty rad.
Yeah.
There's the Cranberry 50, which is a 50-miler in the Adirondacks, but it only has about 5,000 or 6,000 of gain.
See, I was going to say, I've done both the Cranberry Loop and the Grafton Loop Trail in Maine, and Grafton Loop Trail is definitely harder.
Way harder, yes, especially because you're supposed to complete them in a day.
Yeah.
I think that they chose the variety. Like they put a Pemi Loop on there, which is a little more rugged. They did a Great Range Traverse. They have the Saranac 6, that's unique just because it's 36 miles, but you're getting in and out of the car, driving to different trailheads.
See, I almost did that a couple years ago, and
yes.
I wish we had more time because like I'll try to have to get someone else, or maybe you can do another episode and we can talk about that. Anyway, sorry, continue.
Yeah, it's a varied list. They basically created it to be, they had a summer patch or like a non-winter patch and a winter patch. And it was just something that kind of was heard about through the grapevine, sounded cool. I think like I had already done probably 5 of them already anyway. So I was like, cool, it's going to get me to do some different things I had never even heard of. I didn't know what the TCT was. So sounded cool to me. And then I found out that one of the dudes was quoted saying, well, if some chicken or little dog can do these, how hard can they be? And that was pretty much the end. Like, game on, dude. Like, I really want to swear there.
You can swear. You can swear. Swear your heart out.
I think my response was game on, motherfucker. And we completed that thing really fast because he wanted to be the first one to get it. And then...
So you beat him at his own challenge?
Beat him. Cole is the #1 finisher listed. A dog that weighs 40 pounds beat the dude.
Nice.
And then also they do have the winter patch, which I will throw out there. Again, like, I don't want to sound like some arrogant freak, but so the Mahoosuc Traverse in winter had never been completed in a single day, at least on record, until I want to say it was 4 winters ago when myself and 6 friends and Cole went and did it.
Can you just clarify what the Mahoosuc Traverse is?
So the Mahoosuc Traverse is all AT, so you've done it.
So that's what I was thinking. I'm just trying to like pinpoint like where to where.
So it's half New Hampshire, half Maine. So it goes through Grafton Notch, basically.
Okay. So basically the hardest part of the entire AT, pretty much.
You got it. Yep. So we did that in winter with headlamps on, handing Cole off through that boulder field.
Oh my God.
And it's not broken out. It's not well traveled. It was a really hard day. And even since then, no one has replicated it. So,
oh, damn.
Yeah. Not to say no one's capable. It just hasn't actually been done.
Right.
Every single winter, we're like, someone's going to go grab this. But that was another just kind of funny one where the guy, they did the Cranberry 50 in winter and he was all jazzed up and it's like, oh, sorry, dude, but like, we're going to go grab that a couple weeks later and you're not going to get that patch either.
Being at his own game.
Yes, every now and again, like that little competitive twinge comes out.
Yeah. Oh, we got some spiciness on Trail Tales today. I love it. That's so funny. So did you? Okay, I can't even remember now. Did you go through every single thing on that list there, or did?
So there's also Devil's Path, Prezi Traverse. I think that's all of them.
Okay, cool. So yeah, just kind of all over the Northeast then, huh?
They really, and I will say this for the list. It's really varied. So it's actually funny. I mean, I ran the Boston Marathon just so people would stop asking if I've ever done the marathon. Like, part of the reason I did all 8 was just so people would stop asking if I'd done them. So I would just recommend, even if people don't care about lists, there are actually 8 really varied, unique, fun types of hikes.
Yeah.
So they're worth doing the same way that I think like the Northeast 115 is worth doing. Even some of those peaks kind of suck, but you know what? You got to go to like the no view, walk through a bog peaks to appreciate the other ones. So
for sure. I'm hoping I'm done with the no view ones. I've got like I think it's either like 100 or 101 of the 115, and all like the bushwhack or not bushwhacks, all the herd paths and the Adirondacks are all done pretty much. And I got to go grab the Catskills ones too, and those look pretty tame. So I'm hoping I'm almost there.
Yes, you're so close.
Awesome. So I think we're gonna start to wrap this up a little bit. Now I am on a streak of forgetting to remind my guests about like the whole story time thing at the end of the episode, but I know you listened to Philip's episode, so I'm hoping you remember. At the end of these episodes, I always like to ask my guests to just share like a story, like any story from or not just any story, their favorite story from any of their hikes. That's what I was going for there. And I know you've done a shit ton of stuff, so if you need to take a second to think about it, no worries at all. I feel like people either like immediately know the story they're gonna tell, or they like just like have to just pick or like a random one because they have so many that they can't even make a decision. So I don't know. When you're ready, I'd love to hear just whatever that like go-to story, if you're at like a campfire or a bar or something and someone asks you whatever your best story is. Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Well, so usually probably my go-to would have been the Winter Mahoosuc, just because that was a really hard, trying day in winter, and a super remote, there's nowhere to bail type of area with kind of just a ragtag group of people trying to like walk through the woods. But it's funny that you say this because I really appreciated Phil sharing our hellacious WCM in October story. And so actually on Saturday, I told Phil I will be returning the favor and discussing our most recent hike together, which was on Saturday.
Nice.
So we ended up doing all of the Pemi Peaks in a single day, which is 14 4,000 footers with 2 bushwhacks over the course of 45-ish miles. And it was anywhere, we had varying data between all of us, but it's anywhere from about 16 to 19,000 of gain. We were all over the map. So basically what we did was, just before midnight, we started up the Flume Slide and covered all of Franconia Ridge in the dark under a perfect, like, starlit sky.
Oh, that must have been amazing. I've always wanted to be up there on the presidentials at night on a clear night like that.
Yes. It was like just so perfect to start the night out. And then in the dark, we bushwhacked down the Lincoln Slide, which is one of the biggest, most recognizable slides in the Whites, especially if you're going up Owl's Head Slide. You can see it really, really clearly. And it's just a huge V coming off of the Franconia Ridge. So we bushwhacked down that slide, went up Owl's Head Slide, then bushwhacked down Owl's Head on kind of like north off of the summit, went up to Garfield, like through 13 Falls, up to Garfield, kind of as a spur, came back down over to Gale Head as the spur, up to South Twin, went out to North Twin as a spur, came back, took the Twinway over to the Bonds, grabbed West Bond, and Bond Cliff, and then flipped around, went to Zealand, hit that hut like nobody's business because we were all really hungry and thirsty.
I can imagine.
Saw the sun setting from Z Cliff at that point. The lighting was gorgeous, and then headed up to Hale and out. And that was an amazing day because it was one of those things that Phil and I had always thrown out there, really wanted to do. We only know of one other person that has completed that in a single day, and it's Sue Johnson, who is an absolute beast of a woman and so awe-inspiring that I never even thought it could be done. So it was really nice to just get out there and complete that. And we laughed and had fun and kind of, Phil and I do joke that we want a no suffering clause in our friendship after 2019. Like, we just need to write it into this friendship contract. But it was just the most perfect day. Everyone got along great. Cole was amazing and never lost his focus. Like, he was dialed in, Phil was dialed in, and I just followed my wolves.
That's awesome. That's so incredible. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, even just doing like the normal like Pemi loop in a day, like that blows my mind that people can do that. I did it in like 2.5 days way back when. So
you got to enjoy it, is what you're saying?
Actually, no, I didn't because it was fucking raining the whole time. But in theory, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna go back and do it for sure because that
definitely
such an epic hike for sure. And I guess I did half of it, or a little bit less than half of it on my thru hike again. But yeah. That's so incredible. Like, you guys are killing it. You guys are killing it for sure.
Thank you.
I think we're gonna end it on that. I love talking about the whites. I'm so glad we got to do that a lot today.
Sweet.
Yeah, just let me thank you one more time for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Of course, and we're gonna have to do another one. You know, once you and Cole kind of finish up in August. I'd love to have you guys back on and maybe talk a little bit more about the Cranberry 50 and the Saranac Lake Sixer, because like I said, I've done the 15. That's one of the last hikes that I've done that I really haven't talked about very much on this podcast. So
that's awesome that you've done it, because not a lot of people really know about it. So
it's definitely rad. A hidden gem of the Adirondacks for sure. It gets overshadowed like every other part of the Adirondacks by the high peaks. So yeah, that's an awesome hike for sure. So yeah, we're gonna have to do another one is what I'm saying here, and I really appreciate you taking the time for one. So that's awesome.
That sounds great.
Yeah, for sure. I guess my last question is, where can people go to follow you and Cole on your future adventures?
So I only use Instagram, and the handle's Wonder Woman Super Pup.
You'll get it once you see your pictures.
Yeah, just let that soak in.
You'll get it. It makes a lot more sense then.
Yes.
If you like dogs and you like dog pictures, you're gonna love her Instagram. It's awesome. I found it way before I even started this podcast and talked to Philip and all that stuff. So yeah.
Nice.
Hell yeah. I think we're gonna wrap it up.